Hello, everybody. Welcome back to season 3 of the SitRet podcast. We are excited to be back, and you have at the command table currently is Jim Ariskany with a boatload of information and stories about Historicon.
That's me. I'm back. You're not getting rid of me that easy.
and then there is me, G, and Chris might pop in here in a little bit. And then Ralph is off doing some other projects, so he may or may not be joining us today. But right now, I'm going to turn the mic over to Jim, and he's going to tell us all about Historicon, which he worked with the guys over at On Tabletop, formerly known as Beast of War. This was a show that I was supposed to attend. Unfortunately, we've had some things with family, and my daughter was graduating, so timing just turned around on itself. So with that in mind, Jim, take it away.
Okay, yeah. Historicon was great. I mean, there's no other adjective that really, fits the bill on that one. Before we get too started, I did want to give a quick shout out to some of our SitRep subscribers that I actually ran across.
Oh, fantastic!
At Historicon, yeah, we had I ran across Bob, Brian, Chip, a bunch of other guys. It was a great time. I won't mention the person's name specifically, but ran across one guy at the concession stand. So I went out to we were in the media bay or whatever, the little media room, and I was like, man, I'm getting hungry. And I saw somebody eating pizza. I'm not supposed to be eating pizza, but I was like, you know what? I'm at a convention. I'm gonna have some fun. And I'm standing there in line waiting for your typical baseball park kind of cheap slice of pizza or whatever. And I'm talking to the person ordering the pizza, and the person in front of me just kind of turns to me real quick, and he's like, you have a podcast, don't you? I'm like, well, I'm on a couple I'm on a podcast. And he's like, yeah, you guys do SitRep, don't you? I was like, oh my God, we actually have a, because there were a lot of people there that knew me or that knew us, obviously from On Tabletop or whatever. And a lot of people that kind of cross over, know us from both. But it was neat, coming across some actual SitRep podcast subscribers. So that was a lot of fun.
Oh, how cool is that, huh? You're getting Definitely. To be YouTube famous.
We got a long road to go on that one, but yeah, we're on our way. But that con was huge. Basically 4 floors.
Wow.
Of a pretty major convention center, 4.5 days. One thing I noticed, I'm not really a convention guy. The last convention I've ever attended was a Star Trek convention in 1992. Where we watched John Delancey, who plays Q, talk about Days of Our Lives because he couldn't give a damn about Star Trek. Yeah. He was asking all these questions. People were asking him questions. He was like, yeah, it was fun. Yeah, it was fun. It was great working with everybody. Yeah, it was fun. And then some, God bless her. I mean, in 1992, she was already pushing 90 years old. She kind of struggles up in the back of the hall, and she's like, I wanted to ask a question because apparently he used to be on Days of Our Lives or something.
Yeah, he did.
Asked the question, and then that was it. It's 35 minutes of just, he lit up like a Christmas tree. And there's 500 Star Trek fans in Klingon makeup going, I thought we were going to talk about Star Trek. But that kind of put me off conventions for a while. But I went to this one, and it was huge, man. It was absolutely monstrous. But one of the things I did kind of notice was, compared to a lot of other events like Salute or UK Games Expo or Gen Con, was that this one was surprisingly uncorporate. There wasn't a lot of selling going on. There was a traders hall, and I spent way too much money in the traders hall. We'll talk about that in a little bit. There was a little thing they called Wally's Basement that was literally in the basement. It was non-traded. You couldn't go in there if you had if you actually owned a store or anything like that, or a website. If you had some sort of commercial license, it was literally, I've got too much stuff. Please take some of it. It was like a poor man's eBay kind of thing.
Oh, how cool. Oh,
there was a lot of little treasures down there. We'll get into that. I think I spent more money there than I did in the quote-unquote traders hall.
Wow.
Yeah, it was great. What was I going to say? Yeah, other than that, there wasn't a lot. There was a huge tournament hall and then 3 floors of games. It was all tables. And it wasn't about, just here's a trade show to come and spend money. It was here it is to play games. And I would say at least one game out of 3 You know, like that was literally our job. You know, Jerry and I are walking around these tables going, okay, here's a table. People are asking for this genre, Napoleonic, American Revolution, you know, moderns, whatever. Hey guys, we'd like to talk to you. We're so and so from SitRep. We're so and so from On Tabletop. Can we talk to you with the camera for 5 minutes? And they're like, yeah, sure. And then you go to talk to them, and you're like, this is the game. What system is it? And you're expecting bolt action, chain of command, force on force, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And it's always like, no, this is just a game that we came up with at the club. This is a game that we do at the convention. This is, by the way, here's our rule book, and he hands like 3 sheets of stapled together, you know, 8.5 by 11 paper. Here are the rules. You know, it was a lot of homegrown games, which I mean, anyone who knows me from the site, I mean, I'm a huge fan of that stuff. I'm probably like one of the worst gaming customers because, you know, I don't buy games. I just write the game myself. But that was a lot of people at the con were running their own games. So that was really refreshing. And it was mostly, you know, participation games was really the bulk of the con.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, you think about it, it goes back to kind of the roots of these kind of conventions where it was people who really get into that genre and, you know, it's not so commercialized. It's about true gaming, you know, in itself.
Yep. And yeah, those were pretty much, I mean, there's a bunch of highlights. I literally have to break my highlights into a couple of categories. You know, well, here was my favorite table, and here was my favorite participation game, and here was my favorite seminar. Oh, I forgot about the seminars. Okay, so yeah, it's 3 full floors and parts of 3 other floors.
Wow.
So I'm calling it 4 floors, but it was really spread out across like 8 areas of a really, you know, big hotel. This was not a small convention. I mean, it wasn't, you know, Gen Con, but it was big. It was a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be. So okay, it was me, Jerry, and Justin from On Tabletop. Poor Justin never really got out of the media room very much. Because with only 3 people there and 1 camera, you know, it was me and Jerry go out and film and interview, and then we come back and we just, you know, give him the card, throw him a bunch of content, and then he gets to edit it, render it, upload it, and get the blog going or whatever.
Yep.
So he almost never got out of the media room, but the media room looked like something out of the West Wing. This was a really awesome convention center, and the Joby Miller, a quick shout out to you know, the coordinator of the event, and the people at the Marriott, and the people at the actual society, Historical Miniature Gaming Society, I think it is. They really did take really good care of us. When I'd say they took good care of us, they took good care of us. The convention coordinator, like the manager of the whole show, sent his wife out to pick us up in his boss's car.
Oh, wow.
To the airport. So got his boss to lend him his car, put his wife in the car, and said, go pick up these yahoos at Philadelphia International. By the way, that's like 2 hours away. So she spent 4 hours on the road. You know, I basically had to reverse mug her in order to try and give her some gas money, and she still wouldn't take it. But then where they set us up, it was great. It looked like something out of the West Wing. Long conference hall, 2 flags at the corner, or, you know, at the head of the table or whatever. You know, it looked like we were launching, we were going to become Democratic candidate number 712. You know, we're going to start our race, make America game again. Yeah, it was great. They took really good care of us. Apparently in that hotel, or in that convention, there's a very old building from Lancaster, Pennsylvania is a very old town, old by American standards. And there was an old building there from like the early 1800s. And as the hotel was expanding, they didn't want to knock down this old building. And so they literally just built around it. So there's an old, like, turn of the 19th century brick building inside the convention, the actual venue. And that's where they set us up. And at the basement of that is an actual archaeological dig ongoing. You know, it's all roped off. They're actually digging for artifacts from Lord knows when. But we're upstairs, and that's where they also had all the seminars. We'll talk about the seminars for a little bit. And yeah, it looked like you know, the Republican cloakroom in there. It was great, you know. And so they had great Wi-Fi. We were able to upload everything. So we're running around and we're going to all these tables, and we just come back and we just give it all to Justin. Justin, you know, was just, you know, working away at it.
Yeah.
So Wally's basement was where we would do or where people were buying and selling or bartering. You weren't allowed to take credit cards. You weren't allowed to have like an actual like commercial license. You couldn't have a store. Nothing could be new. It was literally just, you got too much stuff, bring it and try to get rid of it and get some money for it. Let's see. I got a new game. Speaking of, to keep the topic on modern gaming, I did manage to pick up a old copy of 1983 Assault by GDW. So Assault is basically Panzer Leader and Team Yankee got together one hot Saturday night and had a baby. And if they had a baby, that game would be Assault. It's 1980s platoon level combat in West Germany. Soviets versus Americans, and then later on they came out with expansions for the Bundeswehr, the British Army of the Rhine. There's one set that I know you would love called Boots and Saddles.
Oh,
It's all American air cavalry at true 250 meters a hex scale. The whole thing. You set up like a whole brigade, and you like try to stop like multiple Soviet tank divisions. It's a real game. Found a copy of that with all the counters still in the punch cards.
Oh, nice.
So I don't know if I'm ever going to punch those counters because, again, mostly for hex and counter, I game electronically anyway. But it was just one of those things like, you know what? This is where half of the 1980s went for me when I was a kid. I'm going to go ahead and just buy this game, keep it on my shelf, and whenever I'm having a bad day, just look at it for a second. Feel better for a little bit. Found an old copy of Panzer Leader that one of our subscribers might be getting. We'll see how that goes.
What?
Yeah. They had one still in the plastic. He was charging $75 for it.
Oh, you should have told me. I would have bought it.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good price for eBay.
It's still in the plastic.
It was still in the plastic. The one I bought was not in the plastic. Some of the counters were still in the punch cards. But the one if you can even find it on eBay, it's usually about $200.
Yeah.
Again, it's a 40-year-old piece of cardboard, so it's not about the material value. It's that this game went out of print in like the late 70s, so they're all collector's items now.
Nice.
And again, because it's all cardboard, not many of them have lasted this long. Yeah, opened it up, checked all the scenes where the bifold boards come together. I mean, I've owned like 6 sets of Panzer Leader. That's always the first thing to go, is where the boards kind of join together where they fold. But everything was great, so that was a lot of fun. Then up in the trading hall, I got actually, no, I'm still down in the basement. I got an M24 Duster at 1-100. I'm sorry, an M42 Duster. That was I think they repurposed an M47 Patton in the anti-aircraft role. They put 2 40 millimeters in there. I'm going to use that in my ongoing 15 millimeter Vietnam Army, because some of them saw action in Vietnam. And then moving up to 20 millimeter or 1-72, I got a brand new from Fields of Valor, pre-painted, like beautiful, almost corgi level, gaming model, a T-72M in desert markings.
Oh wow, nice.
So I had a T-72. I think I had this exact same tank, but for the Ukraine series, I repatriated it back to the motherland, so to speak, and repainted it in Soviet markings or Russian markings, green camouflage and so on. And so I basically ruined it for that article series. But now I have a replacement, so I have a brand new Iraqi T-72M, which I can use with all my 1-72 American stuff for Desert War, Iraqi Freedom. I'm sorry, Desert Storm, Iraqi Freedom, that kind of thing. And make sure you're sitting down for this.
Okay.
I got from again, I think it's either Fields of Valor or Fields of Honor. It's a company, I'm probably getting the name wrong, where you can, this is the kind of miniature you buy when you're long on money and short on time. It is expensive. It's like, $40-50 retail. I got it on sale for 30. But it's a true 1-72 UH-60 Blackhawk.
What?
This thing is huge. It's a 20 millimeter Blackhawk. Yeah.
Wow.
Complete with, door guns that turn, doors that slide open, slide shut. The landing gear retracts, the rotor spin, the whole 9 yards. Again, it's out of the box and it's ready to play. It's not going to win a Golden Dragon out of the box, but it's you put it on the stand and boom, you have now an absolute ridiculously awesome gaming piece, gaming miniature.
So who's the company?
This is the problem I'm probably getting wrong. It's either Fields of Valor or Fields of Honor.
Okay.
It's one of those two. It's something like that, and it's mostly they call it like it's like a toy company or whatever, but
Okay.
it's not scale model. You don't have to build anything, and it's not an actual miniature. It's not like Forge World or anything. But you take it out of the box, and trust me, I'll put up some pictures up when I finally get my dining room straightened out. You take it out of the box, and you have what would take you a month to build and paint. Clear plastic canopy. None of this. You have to paint it blue and then put a highlight on it. No, it's all clear. It's all hollow. You can see the people inside the house. It's the real deal. They aren't cheap. They aren't cheap, but again, it's like a rebate on your time.
Oh,
You
nice.
buy this out of the box, you pull a couple screws out. Like for the rotors, I had to like stick 2 rotors in or whatever, and you have I think now it's literally my biggest miniature.
And how's
'Cause
it scaled to the others in that same? Is it pretty
it's
close?
it's very close. Yeah, I have the reason I bought it in 1:72
Uh-huh.
is because I'm mostly a 15 mil guy. Is uh, for whatever reason, whenever I got into moderns a couple years ago, I just got into 20 mil. And so all like my M1 Abrams is 20 mil, my two T-72s, my T-64s, my T-80s, my 250 infantry of various factions are all in 20 mil, 1:72. So it's like, okay, for better or worse, with the exception of my Team Yankee stuff, which I guess is technically modern or modern-ish, alternate modern, whatever you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Except for that, all my modern stuff is 1:72. And so I grabbed a couple of my, my Iraqi Freedom Marines, my Desert Storm Marines, and kind of held them up to the chopper. And yeah, it's imposing how huge it is. It is big.
Oh, I'm gonna have to look that up. I'll have to see about
Yeah.
that. That is cool.
So that's pretty much what I got in the Traders Hall. Like the real, like commercial, everything's still in plastic. These are actual vendors or whatever. I don't know how long you want me to keep going.
No, keep going. They're
It was a big convention. There was a lot going on. What was I going to say here? Okay, so they had the Traders Hall. The tournament halls we tried to get into, or not like get into to play or whatever, but trying to like photograph or cover a little bit. Again, most of the coverage is on ontabletop.com if you want to check it out in detail. So I had like a lot of favorite games or whatever, but the ones that I'm going to stick to here, just because they're moderns, there was a guy there running Mein Panzer from Lord knows when. That's an old system. It was basically Team Yankee-like.
Uh-huh.
He had, except unlike Team Yankee, he actually had T-80s on the table. That was the only reason I kind of dragged Jerry over there with the camera. And I was like, we're doing this guy's table. Because he actually has like the correct quote unquote tanks on the table. So he had basically T-80s, and looks like we have Chris has joined us. Chris, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Can you guys hear me?
Oh yeah, we can definitely hear you.
Awesome.
Okay.
Hey, can you turn your gain down just a little bit, Chris? You're really coming across loud.
Okay, hold on.
Cool. So, like I said, Mein Panzer was, again, it's another Team Yankee-like game. Russians are coming into West Germany, except he was doing it in 10 mil. And I wanted to get that because we've talked on this SitRep podcast a bunch of times about playing Team Yankee or Team Yankee-like games in smaller scales.
Yeah.
And GHQ has been doing that since the 60s. GHQ is one of the oldest miniature games out there, literally since the 1960s, when 1960 was modern, or near future. And they actually, I mean, I don't know how many people may or may not know this. They didn't start in World War II. They started in moderns.
Uh-huh.
Or like what was modern at the time. And then they realized that they had a winner on their hands, and they went into World War II, and then, they just took off from there. But he was doing it in 10 mil, so that was interesting. There were 2 big force-on-force tables there in 20 millimeter moderns. And when I say big, I mean big. There was one guy, his force-on-force table was easily 6 feet by 20 feet.
That's huge.
Yeah, it was a huge table, yeah. And then there was one we didn't quite get to. It was a 28 millimeter oil rig, which we kept trying to get back to. But whenever we got there, he was either setting up or taking it down, or he was too busy to actually, because these guys are running like participation games with sometimes up to 12 people.
Yeah.
But this oil derrick was easily 3.5 feet off the table, with little railings and like 28 millimeter guys. How big is an oil platform going to be? It's going to be big.
Awesome. Very cool.
But yeah, those were some of the standout tables. Again, there's plenty more, but I don't want to take over the whole podcast.
Oh no, I mean this is our welcome back, and I have another guest that's going to be joining us here in studio. I'm going to get him set up, so I'm going to jump off for a minute. Jim and Chris, if you want to kind of talk about what's you guys have been up to lately, I will be right back as I get him set into a chair. Okay?
Sounds great.
All right, Jim, you drive it.
Oh man, back over to me. So Chris, what's been going on with you? What's been going on with you, Chris? It's been a while since you've been on one of our episodes.
Down to working 2 jobs now instead of 4. You know.
4.
Yeah. Yeah. And unfortunately, I've had some deaths in my family. So.
I'm very, very sorry to hear that.
Yeah. So, we've been dealing with that. So. Yeah, so I've been slowly setting up a studio. I've got new cameras, new lights. Started doing a lot of content just before my niece passed away, but I'll be getting back to that this weekend, so probably tomorrow. But and lots of printing, lots of 3D printing for scenery, and that's about it for me right now.
Okay, so like 3D printing for scenery, you're talking about like terrain or buildings or trees?
I've been doing everything. I've been printing buildings in 15 mil and 28. I've been printing.
Or play a couple turns of the Normandy version, the Ultra Combat Normandy. We put some content on.
I've watched that. That was awesome.
But I have not tried the modern one yet.
Yeah, I've been sent a copy of the playtest rules, so I've been playtesting that with my son. So we've been making some new scenery. We're going to be taking some pictures of our game tomorrow. So we'll be posting pictures of that as well. So, but it's been fun playtesting that rule set. We've played a couple games of the Ultra Combat Normandy, but we set the storyline after World War II, but we're playing in Africa. So we played a game where we had a mercenary force with lots of World War II equipment, and it was the 50s, and we had an African nation with leftover World War II equipment. So
that's what it was all about. And we did our Op Center episode. In fact, our very, very first Op Center episode was the 56 Suez War. And that's all World War II. There was except for like a handful of AMX-13s, the entire armies of both sides were all World War II. Mostly British, a little bit of American, a little bit of Soviet, but all World War II.
We played. We had one M5 Stuart on one side, some M3. What is it? The M3 armored cars, the white armored cars. We had a couple of those. Some M5 half tracks. We had one M5 half track with a 75 millimeter gun on the back.
Nice.
Yeah.
Like the T19 variant, I think.
Yes, that was it. Yeah.
That was the American self-propelled howitzer because we gave all of our M7 Priest to the British.
Yeah.
So some of those batteries didn't get their correct guns until way into Italy, like December of '43.
Yeah.
All right, I'm back.
Hey, she's back.
Okay. Hey, Chris, it's nice to hear your voice. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's good to hear all of you.
We wanted to send our condolences to you and your family on your unfortunate events that have happened recently. Our best wishes go out to you and your loved ones.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, in studio, I have a special guest. So, once a year, we have a sabbatical here at our Sit Rep Podcast headquarters. And the crew from Dust USA come and just chill out and do nothing but eat and swim and just relax. So in the studio with me, I have Greg. Greg, you want to jump on and say hello to everybody?
Hi, everyone.
You guys hear him okay?
A little bit muted.
Little soft.
A little soft? Let me turn him up a little bit. Try it again there, Greg.
Hi, everyone.
Better?
Still a little bit quiet.
Still pretty soft.
Okay. All right. It may be the mic we're working on, so I'm going to turn my mic towards him as well, and that should help amplify. So, Greg is what is your official title?
I'm the owner
Guru.
and yes, I'm the owner and manager of Dust USA.
All right, so I brought Greg in the studio, obviously, because he's here relaxing, and there's no way you can get away from work from an entire weekend. So we're going to talk a little bit, as we know, this podcast is anything post 1945 and beyond. And I thought we'd have a little bit of fun today because Dust technically, as of right now, takes place in 1947. So we found a loophole.
Just split that hair a little. Yeah, there you go.
But the interesting thing is, and I don't know how much Greg can say at this point, but Dust is going to go beyond 1947 into later decades. And we have been talking, and I know we've mentioned it before on this podcast, around Halloween time, we're going to take history and reality, if you will, and turn it on its head into an appropriate genre during the Halloween time period. So weird World War II, pulp, type stuff, because right now you have obviously Dust, 1947, you have Black Sun, which is out right now. So, we're definitely looking at that, and I'm trying to twist Greg's arm to be one that would come along and do a Dust boot camp weekend for Sit Rep here locally. So we want to welcome Greg to the show, and Greg, anytime jump in the conversation, okay? So I'm sorry, so what were you guys saying about, so Chris, what have you been up to? I heard something about some tanks.
Oh, I've been printing a lot of tanks.
I've seen that.
Tanks. Yeah, and lots of trucks and Jeeps and support vehicles. We've been testing ultra-modern combat for the guys at Radio Dish Dash. What else have we been doing? We've been printing 15 mil buildings for World War II. We've been printing 28 mil buildings for all kinds of different games. So we've been pretty busy, and I'm down to 2 jobs now, which is nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
So how is the gameplay going for Ultra Combat Modern?
We've had minimal snags. There has been a couple things, and we're working. Everybody's working with Radio Dish Dash to kind of improve a couple of things.
Good.
Spotting. We had a discussion about spotting actually this week about how you spot units or guys on the table.
We had that conversation at Historicon with the because our game was obviously Ultra Combat Normandy, and it was like a little detached. It was a little detachment of the 709th running across scattered American paratroopers, and I understand the spotting rules. The spotting rules themselves were fine, but the question I had was, okay, I have, say, 3 fire teams. The Americans had, say, 4 fire teams. Okay, German Fire Team 2 has spotted German Fire Team 3. but that doesn't mean everybody gets to see them. So now German Fire Team 1 has spotted American Fire Team 4, but American Fire Team 4 does not have the German spotted. They have German spotter team number 3 spotted. And before you know it, you almost see like a beautiful mind where you have these crazy diagrams across your table going, okay, who has who spotted? And he was talking about tokens and counters or whatever.
That's the issue we're having right now.
Yeah, it was not just in a lot of games, spotting is a binary state. A unit is either spotted or not spotted. But which is a great mechanic, we just need to come up with a way to record it easily. Whereas certain units have certain other units spotted, but not others. So yeah, that was the only. Again, in a small game, it wasn't that big a deal, but I could see that if the game expanded, you might run into some issues there.
Nice. So we've been discussing a spot on their unit cards. You know how they have the cards, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. We're talking about a section on it for dry erase, let's just say, for marking spotting. We also discussed markers. Like tomorrow's game, I'll be using some markers that I printed out, and I've color-coded them. And we're going to use those for right now and see if that speeds things up. But like myself, I don't like a lot of markers out on the table.
Yeah.
You know, so we're looking at towards the cards and using the cards. But for now we're going to use markers, and we're going to see how that runs, and then we're going to try it on cards later.
It almost sounds like you need a dry erase board just to say spotters. And they just keep track of who's spotting who.
That's what I think the guy said. Historicon. Didn't they use a whiteboard, Jim?
I didn't see one, but I was only there for like half of one game.
I think they ended up using one later on in the day.
Half of one game, which we won, by the way. I just want to,
Well, of course you did. You're part of Sit Rep. We don't lose. Gosh darn it.
with all respect to Drew. Drew won that game. I was just kind of.
Well, let me rephrase that. I win games in Sit Rep. Right, Jim?
Yeah, you win games and sit 40 to 39.
Yeah, I know. That was a really close game. So speaking of Sit Rep, Chris, are you still working on some tutorial videos for Spectre or Skirmish? You were Skirmish, right?
I'm working on Skirmish. And I have now, I was just saying to Jim earlier, I've got the lights set up.
Okay.
I've got the cameras set up. I've got brand new cameras and lighting. And we're just working on some scenery to start filming tutorial videos for Skirmish Sangan in the Ukraine.
Nice. Okay. That'll be awesome.
Yeah. And I've been talking to Colin about that, so I've been keeping him in the loop, and he's been providing me with information, and I'm talking to him about cards for special units. He's going to do them up for me, so I'll be with the funeral and everything last week. We're going to get together this week to discuss making the cards.
Fantastic.
Do the demo.
Fantastic. All right, so Jim, you got a new project that we'll be seeing shortly on the channel.
Yes, a couple actually. So Op Center Season 3 is in the works. The first episode is written, recorded, edited, and mixed, and now I just have to do like the images and the storyboards for it. We're hoping to have that out, the first episode of that out shortly. Based on when other Sit Rep content is coming out, we're looking at maybe like the first week of August. But that season is definitely underway, and we're definitely started on that one.
So what's this one going to be about?
I don't know if that's still classified or not.
Oh.
We have to keep some people.
Can you give them a decade?
Well, it's post 1945. In all seriousness, okay, you know what? It's all seriousness. It's the 1960s.
Okay.
And we'll see how that goes. More immediately, speaking of the 1960s, more immediately, actually, it should be up by the time this podcast goes out. By the time of this recording, we're doing it tomorrow. We're going back to Air War C-21.
Nice.
And we're doing it over the skies, jet combat over the skies over North Vietnam. So we'll have either some F4 Wild Weasels or Marine Corps / U.S. Navy F4s, mixing it up with some MiG-17s over North Vietnam. We had part of the whole Rolling Thunder campaign in 66, 67, 68. What kind of inspired me was at a Historicon there was a table that had F-105 Thunder Chiefs, F-4 Phantoms, mixing it up with, again, the most common Vietnamese fighter in that war was the MiG-17. Some 21s came in near the very end, like the Easter Offensive in 75, but it was mostly 17s. They had a nice little dogfight going there. Check Your Six was the system.
Nice.
So yeah, I saw
That's a good school system.
Yeah, they were having some fun with it. That's for sure. We didn't get any video of it, but I did manage to grab some photo essays or whatever, some photo galleries and put them up. The miniatures look great. It was neat seeing the dull, matte, very dark green camouflage pattern that the NV, or North Vietnamese Air Force, or whatever you want to call it, People's Air Force of Vietnam, was using, again, for a lot of their MiG-17s. And especially when you take that dark green and you splash it against the very large and very bright red wing insignia. So the MiG-17s definitely looked awesome. And then on the other side, you had almost a similar color scheme with the F-105, Thuds.
Uh-huh.
The Thunder Chiefs. But then you had these dazzling white and silver. I guess they were supposed to be Navy planes, F-4 Phantoms and whatever.
Yeah.
The Air Force. You see the Air Force and the Army had like some sort of green or camouflage, and the Marines and Navy would have, for their carrier-based, strikes for Rolling Thunder, had like that very bright white or light gray, almost a silver kind of a look to it. So yeah, it definitely looked great on the table, that's for sure.
Awesome. That is really cool. So, are you going to quote some Top Gun lines while you're doing that? You talked, when they were talking about the air-to-air combat kill ratio from World War II to Korea, then to Vietnam, they went from 30 to 1 down to 5 to 1, and that's why Top Gun was created and all that stuff.
They definitely do have that reflected in the game.
Do they?
And, we your F4 suddenly don't have guns. And everyone who's watched any of our Falklands content, knows that the Air War C-21 games we had in our Falklands this season was like, man, those, especially for the Argentinians, guns are the only way you can win.
Yeah.
Because their missiles are terrible. You have to win with guns. And now the Americans are going without guns. Now, they did develop gun pods. Very quickly they realized, wow, we didn't build the F-4 Phantom with guns. We were too reliant on missiles. So they very, very quickly got the idea of quick fix in the field. You know how it goes. We're going to strap some external gun pods, 25 millimeter, 20 millimeter, 30 millimeter gun pods under, the fuselage and wings of these Phantoms. The problem is Air War C-21 does have rules where you're turning and your acceleration and your deceleration, basically all your flight characteristics really get cut down when you start putting external ordnance onto a plane.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like you really have to make that decision you read about all the time. We just got bounced by a bunch of fighters on our way on a bombing mission, dump the ordnance in the ocean and fight it out. Because you can't get in a dogfight with... And as it is, the F-4 Phantom, I've heard this joke a bunch of times, the proof that if you put enough thrust behind a brick will fly.
Right.
So you're already handling like a school bus, and now you've got gun pods on, and you're up against MiG-17s, which were some of the most maneuverable jets, developed until the late 1980s. They're not great, but they're definitely maneuverable. So I'm anticipating that game is tomorrow. We're going to go ahead and Twitch that live for SITREP, and we might have some edited, videos, excerpts, and highlights up on YouTube, hopefully during the coming week. Again, this will probably all be in the past by the time this podcast is out. Yeah, we're going to see how it goes. It's going to be electronics and firepower versus maneuverability, and numbers, because obviously the North Vietnamese are going to have the big edge in those categories.
Excellent. So, just a quick catch up for me. I got Day of Heroes, which is a lock and load tactical system game. It's based on Mogadishu, so I'll be doing some play on that. I'm still working on Arma 3. I have my friend who's in computers who's going to build us a server so we can have a dedicated server to that. So I'm working on a new unit for Arma 3. It's the 3-2 ODA of the 12th Special Forces Group. The 12th Special Forces Group was a real SF group. It was an Army Reserve group that no longer exists. It was deactivated back in the mid-90s, I want to say. So I'm building the uniforms and equipment for that, and it will be a 12-man team. And so we'll have slots for 12 people to play. So doing that. And then I'm also diving into DCS World. I was playing a Tomcat. I think, Jim, you popped in late on one of those when I was trying it out. And in typical fashion, I flew it so damn hard I ripped the wings off. So
VMAX succeeded.
So
Tomcat can only take so much.
Yeah, so I'm like, what the hell? It's not easy. And the amount of realism in that game is incredible because you can take it from a cold start and go through the whole pre-flight and, get everything going. I quickly realized this is a really great game for VR. If you have Oculus or something, so you can manipulate the controls, with your hands, because trying to do it with a mouse and joystick is a little hard, but the realism in it is pretty remarkable. And of course they have mods, so I'm looking to do either Libya, if you remember Libya when we splashed a couple guys back in the day. So
Back in Ronald Reagan years.
yes.
Will not cross my line of death.
Yes, and then Ronnie Reagan said, and took care of him. So, and then I'm definitely going to be doing some Spectre stuff. I've got that nice display table downstairs, so I'll be working on that. And then, I play this little game called Dust with my little gaming group. It's all my former high school Army buddies. We play Dust and some other things. And Greg's here with us. And Craig, why don't you tell us what's new with Dust?
Plenty. How can I say that? We are releasing new armies. We recently released the Japanese Imperial Navy.
Nice.
So it's a brand new army, a brand new block, a little bit more modern in the appearance. Because it's obviously late war and after war Japan. All the walkers are inspired by the submarines that Japan had, and the ships. So it's actually it really looks good. We're really happy with that. Player seems to be happy with it too.
Nice. Now, the Japanese, what is their unique weapon? Like everybody has like a Tesla and phasers. What is Japan's unique weapon?
The railgun.
Of course. Japan gets a railgun.
Yeah, so, which is a funny story actually, because the railgun was invented by the Italians. But part of the Axis, they were already working on it actually, and Japan basically stole the technology. So yeah, it's a very interesting weapon.
Because I mean, from what I know about Dust, a lot of the walkers for other factions were based on tanks.
Yes.
I was like, oh man, Japanese tanks in World War II were just the worst.
Yes, that's exactly what Paolo said.
They were even worse than the Italians. Their military doctrine in the late 30s, the only war they were really expecting was to continue to fight in China, and China had no tanks. So for them, tanks were just never that big of a priority.
Yeah.
They tried to fix it during the war. They never got around to it. But Japanese submarines were huge.
Yep.
The I-400 class. Japanese, I don't know if you knew this, Gene. Japanese had a class of submarines that were designed to reach the coast of the United States. And unlike a lot of these Axis super weapons you hear about, the Japanese actually did build these and use them in combat. And the I-400s were so big, this World War II submarine could launch a seaplane.
Yeah, 2 of them actually, I think. Wasn't it 2?
Yeah, I can't remember. I just remember, it had like a little hangar bay inside a submarine.
It's funny you say that because I just watched a program not too long ago, or was it a book I read? I don't remember. But it was a story I read, or it was a program. There was one sunk off the coast of Washington, Oregon, and they. Oh, you know what? I take it back. It wasn't a program. It was a book I was reading. It was one of the Dirk Pitt novels from Clive Cussler. He talked about that submarine in the book. That it supposedly sank off the coast of like Washington, Oregon, and they dove on it. You know, and they got into the hangar bay with the plane in it. You know, and I was like, I didn't know it really existed. I thought it was just part of the story. So that's interesting.
It was definitely a class of the Japanese submarines. I don't think they had very many of them. It may have just been a handful, but it was a thing.
Did it actually ever see combat though?
I don't know if it ever
transporting.
It was used. It was definitely used.
Yeah, there are some reports of the use of the catapult submarines.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, there are some reports of the use of submarines that had these weird catapults to launch planes during the war, by Japan.
Awesome.
Yeah, those are the I-400s. I don't know if they ever attacked anybody or sank anybody, but they were a real, not like a lot of stuff you read about in, you see some guy on YouTube or whatever, it's like the Germans had this, the Germans had that, the Germans had plans for this. Well, if you consider plans, it's 3 o'clock in the morning and, one of Hitler's guys doodled this on a cocktail napkin. Okay, yeah, there are a lot. That's literally as far as a lot of that stuff got. But the Japanese really did build those I-400s. Absolutely.
So I looked it up. They were actually built specifically for one mission.
Really?
That mission was to attack the Panama Canal.
Okay.
Yeah. But they used them for transport purposes quite a bit. And at least one of them was sent to Germany, and it had picked up different kinds of equipment and brought it back to Japan. That's where a lot of that the rockets they got, the V1s, V2s towards the end. That's where they got that. They brought it back in one of those submarines.
Yeah, the Japanese took pretty much the idea, the German shutter rocket, or whatever you want to call it, technology that they had in the V1. But for the Germans, it was a gyroscope stabilized kind of a cruise missile. The Japanese put a pilot in that.
Yeah.
They were like, here you go. Here's your cup of sake. Go find an American carrier. And you see a lot of that in Okinawa, and the last 100 days run up to the very end of the war.
So that leads me to a question, Greg. Are we going to see kamikaze pilots or some kind of troops in the Japanese army in Dust?
We have talk of that. I haven't seen any concept yet.
Okay.
But I considering we're late war, I wouldn't be surprised.
Interesting. So, speaking of late war, let's say Dust continues on past 1947, which we all know it probably will. Where does Dust go next after post-World War II? Are we going to see a Korean version?
So
he's over here going, stop talking, stop talking.
No, because of the Ukraine of Dust, obviously the timeline changes significantly. So in the 60s, for example, we have a Dust 1963. And then we have a Dust 1984 actually, and both dates are supposed to mirror what was happening in the real world, but obviously with a twist. In 1963, it's the beginning of the exploration of space for the armies of Earth, basically. The aliens that started it all came back basically and started to lay waste and devastation everywhere. And the population of Earth is now in contact with the technology that they had no idea could exist. For example, for the Vril, walkers are a technology of the past. It's dated, it doesn't work, it's too slow, so now they are using actually anti-grav technology. So they have shuttles and spaceships and this kind of thing. So the contact of this brand new technology that has been obviously rendered better by the Vril in the centuries that they had makes the space exploration possible. So that's the space program, that's NASA, that's these kind of things.
Nice. Cool.
and then 1984, it's Star Wars basically. The war is not even on Earth only; it's everywhere, and it's in space. So the story becomes more than global; it becomes universal.
So you were telling me a little bit about it. So it's like the battlefields move off of Earth for the most part because one country takes over the planet essentially, and they have to move. And
so no, that is another project for the moment, which is called Monochrome Red, which is a new game that we are releasing soon. There's a trademark on the word soon. But it's really this game is really different. You are in a not so far future from now, and the Earth has been completely colonized by China, who won this Third World War basically, and the only people that managed to fight against the invasion from China are the mega corporations. And they decided to basically leave Earth to China and say, you know what, the hell with it, we're going elsewhere. And they take their spaceships and they go to the moon and to Mars that they have colonized already several years ago.
nice.
And so that's the reason why the name of the game is Monochrome Red. It's because you are fighting China on Earth, which is red, and you have Mars that is red. So
Very cool. And will it be same scale as current Dust?
no,
miniatures?
it's actually way smaller. It's going to be 1/144th.
Oh wow.
So
There you go.
so
Nice.
very tiny scale, modern weaponry, very modern, futuristic sometimes. Very small scale, self-contained, for 2 to 4 players. It's really a different kind of game. It's going to play on hexagons.
There you go, Hex.
Nice.
Because it's easier at that scale, and that allows for more for simpler movements and calculations of distances and these kind of things, which is a big credo of our company already. So yeah, it's really a fast-paced, super destructive game, system that is close to the one of Dust. So dice recursion, cards for the profiles, these kind of things. And yeah, it's promising so far.
Sounds good. I'm in. When do you need beta testers? I'm in.
I'm gonna ask Olivier actually when he's gonna start that. So
I
Excellent.
believe you need an expert for that one.
It sounds like you do need a Hex expert.
Go. Place some light on that one.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that setting sounds chillingly likely, chillingly plausible. The
Yeah.
whole
It
world
is.
coming down to China and the corporations. I call that scenario next Wednesday.
next Wednesday, it's exactly that. Yeah.
It's kind of scary that we're kind of that close. But that's really exciting, and to be in 10 mil, that more realistic ranges. Especially when you're getting to bigger weapons. I'm always a fan of the micro scales. 6 mil, 10 mil. So
I love them too, but
Going 10 mil this next year.
are ya?
Yeah. North Hag has me going 10 mil.
Oh yeah. Did you? I was gonna say there's a few things to talk about, but Greg, why don't you tell people who aren't familiar with Dust in its current format, how do you play Dust? Give us the elevator pitch. A brand new person, how do you get them into the game? What draws people into Dust?
wow, the fact that the miniatures are awesome, but also the game system is really it relies on one short sentence. We are old, we are tired, and we work all day, and we want a game that we can put on the kitchen table at the end of the day and play with.
Nice.
So it's really that. You want a game that gives you some strategy, give you some possibilities, but you really want this game to not clutter you with details that you don't need, either because you already have excellent games that already do it, or because it's absolutely not your kind of game. And there's a fringe of population that is not familiar with miniature gaming because of this barrier of complex rules and a lot of reading and this kind of things. And our game is right now in a very nice place for that, because you have obviously rules to read and this kind of things, but you can really layer the game the way you want. It can be your very appetizer game, or it can be something rich, complex, with a campaign system, with weather, with terrain, with special rules, and these kind of things.
Very nice. Very nice. It is a fun game. It's easy to get into. The miniatures come in 2 different sets right now, primed.
Yep.
So all the miniatures come primed. Or you can go up to premium, and they're pre-painted. And the pre-paints are actually really nice. You know, it's not like somebody just slaps on a color here and a splash of here. They actually take their time on them. I'm quite impressed. You know, if you're one of those people that is short on time, has a little bit of extra money, because it does obviously cost a little bit more, because you do have people hand painting these things. You know, it's not a machine; they're hand painted.
It's hand painted by 12 painters.
So it's really nice, and you can get it's a grid based system. You know, so you're using grid, and I came from the old school of Dust Warfare, so open play, and then Greg convinced me to try Dust 47 in its current, you know, with the grid. I'm like, it's grid, you know, but it actually plays really well, and movements, flows, I mean, it's almost like taking hex space and obviously making it into a bigger grid. You know, you can move this way, you've got points in each grid that's how you measure and aim for, and then line of sight and everything. So it pretty much takes all that ambiguity out of the game and makes it very streamlined and fast play.
And it still allows you to play with 3D terrain.
There's never a 4-up in a hex or a grid game.
Yeah.
That's the thing that takes up. There's never a 4. There's never like, oh, well, I don't know. You know what? Let's 4-up it. You never see that in hex games or grid games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Chris, what were you going to say?
I've been playing Dust since it began.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of Dust. We've got a lot of Dust.
Good. Everything is still playable. So
it's the Cthulhu faction.
The Mythos?
Mythos. He saw those and he was just like, I need those now.
Yeah, let me tell you about the Mythos. They're a son of a bitch to play against. So, was it last year, Greg? I think it was last year. There's a small convention here in outside of Chicago called Polar Vortex, and they had a very small, intimate Dust tournament. You know, and Greg was coming up to support it, because Greg and his wife Alicia are extremely involved in the community here in the United States. They travel all over the country to support game stores and small conventions, you know, and so they came up to do this one. And Greg goes, let's do a game, Dust USA versus Beast of War. Okay, fine. So I put together, Jim, you'll like this, I put together a USMC group. That was
your first correct move.
So we played, what was it, 100 points?
100 points, yeah.
100 points. I had a ton of units on the table, because, you know, a lot of it was infantry, so it's lower cost point-wise. And I still had 3 walkers, I want to say, on the table as well. Here comes Greg with the brand new, not even released Mythos set. It was 3 monsters and 1 mercenary squad, I think it was.
Yeah, at that time, yeah.
Yeah, so you could hold an objective.
Yeah.
So I had these, you know, big walkers, you know, and one of his first moves, I'm like, I got this walker, I'm going to take out this monster, right? His first move, the freaking monster flies, lands in there, and rips my turret off the tank like it was butter. So I'm like, well, this is going to suck. So
We're off to a great start.
yeah, I was off to a great start, but I actually won it in the end. But the only reason I won it is I had more units on the table. That's truly the only reason I won it.
That's not the only reason. Gianna played extremely well that day. There was not even a dice peak to justify any, you know, exploit or anything. It was really a good game. and she had an army that was extremely well done, very able to deal with any threats, even the heavy monsters that I had. Obviously, my infantry unit got like pulverized extremely fast, so that I couldn't take the objective anymore. So after that, I could play for the draw or the defeat. And she didn't let me have a draw.
Yeah,
I like.
So no,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, tell me.
Yeah, Gianna is she picks up games very, very quickly. That Valorant Victory game. I think that was your first game of Valorant Victory, right, Gianna?
Yeah, it was.
Special Forces?
Yeah.
And that wasn't like a soft pitch game. I wasn't like throwing the game to let her win on camera or whatever. I mean, and she won by 1 point, but she did win. Absolutely.
Yeah, she has a good understanding of game systems, and she has a very acute sense of strategy. So it was really a good game. It's an excellent memory for me. So, and we had a blast.
Yes.
I mean, I was laughing all along, but really I was also sweating. So.
Now, if you guys have not played Dust, go ahead, Chris.
I was just saying I like the new grid format. I've actually now played 2 games with a grid format, and I'm thinking about ordering a mat for both Dust and To the Strongest. And I enjoy it. It's fun. I come home, I only got a couple hours, I throw down, and we play a game real quick.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those games you can, my 2 best friends, they came to Adepticon this year just to check it out because they've never been, and they're not big gamers. We used to do some D&D and stuff, but they're not big war gamers. And I took them over, introduced them to Greg, and they looked around, and they're both either just retired from the Army or going to be retiring soon. One's a sergeant major, one was first sergeant. And they both picked up starter sets. Loved it. We now play, at least once a month. We try to get together when the schedules allow, and it's so easy because we started at 5 o'clock one night and we were done by 9. And that's with us being stupid and BSing each other and busting chops and doing the stupid stuff that we usually do. But gameplay's smooth. It's easy to understand. It's fun to play. And it's like it's grid. Because like I said, Chris, and you're probably the same way at least at one point. It felt like my initial thought was, are you going to be restricted because you're on a grid base instead of free movement, like in Warfare? But no, you don't feel that way at all. You really don't. And for you guys out there, definitely have to give it a shot. There are starter armies and starter sets that you can, and they do come with a mat in it for each starter army, right? And it's a really nice neoprene quality mat. So I highly recommend the game. It's a lot of fun, and I have a ton of Dust stuff. So we play a lot. Even Dawn plays it. She plays those freaking communist SSU people. Oh my God, they're the worst. Those freaking battle suits.
I love my helicopters.
Yeah, and they have helicopters. How did the Russians get helicopters? I know, Sikorsky. I know. Gosh darn it! But
2 quick.
Go ahead, Jim.
I was gonna say two very quick things. Chris, I didn't know you played To the Strongest. We had a To the Strongest table at Historicon. They were doing the Battle of Magnesia. We had some photo essays of that up there.
Oh.
We wanted to shoot. Oh, yeah, gorgeous, like 6 mil, or I can't remember if it was 6 or 10, but I think it was 10. But he had like almost 1,000 miniatures on the table. We were trying to get some video with him, but again, he had like 8 players. He was super busy. And as far as, again, this is, a Risking the Hex guy. As far as, grid games or whatever, and sometimes, I know you guys have come around, but there's a lot of people out there that are like, oh, I don't want to play a grid game or a Hex game, or especially a grid game, because, it's not immersive, it's not how real combat is. Excuse me, have you seen a military map?
Yeah.
You can find on military maps. They're all nothing but grids.
Yep.
Real war is fought on a grid map. When they do it at a 1-to-1 scale, you're doing it on a grid map. So, just food for thought.
Yeah, that's very true. I never thought of it that way because when we're calling in support, what are you calling in? Your grid. So, you know.
Or land nav, or trying to get to the next waypoint, or any kind of patrol. It's always on the grid map.
Yep. So, yeah, that's a good point, Jim. I never thought of that. Well, excellent. Greg, so when you're not playing Dust, what do you play?
Oh, lately not much, to be honest, because I really don't have time. We spend our weekends traveling all around, so it eats up a lot of time. I play some RPGs, mainly with my kids. I introduce them to that.
Yeah.
They also play Dust with me, so it makes it easy.
Nice.
But yeah, we play that. My retirement project is to play The Lord of the Rings. I want to recreate the battles, so that's really my retirement project.
Excellent. All right, Chris, let's talk some news. You want to talk about North Hag?
Yes. So it has been announced. Still no release date that I've seen yet, but Plastic Soldier Company will be releasing it. It will be starting in the 80s, mid-80s, I believe, 84, and they will be releasing plastic 10 mil modern for this project. And I can understand why they've gone with a 10 mil. It's like what Jim and I've said. It just scales better. It doesn't. Your table does not look like a parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So 10 mil, it's still recognizable of what it is. The detail's still there, and it just looks more epic on the table, right? So Pierce has been posting lots of pictures of, because he's been painting a lot of 10 mil stuff, because I guess he's got some of the pre-release stuff, and he's been painting that stuff up, and he's been showing off a lot of the Soviet stuff. It looks really good.
Is he still involved in Battle Group? I thought he was stepping away.
As far as I know, he's still doing some stuff with work.
Okay.
I think he's still doing a lot of the photographing.
Okay.
For books and stuff.
The thing with Battle Group is that it's two different companies. There's Plastic Soldier Company and Iron Fist Publishing.
Yes. Yeah.
And that, at least for me and some of the people on Beast of War, that relationship has never been made entirely clear.
Oh, gotcha.
I don't know exactly where the overlap is.
It's kind of, we don't know. That's what it is.
Yeah.
But so there's that coming out. What else is? I've seen a few different new rule sets.
They're, I'm trying to, I don't want to screw up the recording because I was trying to access Facebook, because there's another rule set that came out, and I happened to mention something on the post. I said, I will definitely want to get our hands on that for a review, and they're like, as soon as we get it printed, we'll send it to you. So I'm waiting on it, and I apologize. I will post it when I remember it, the company. But yeah,
was it the same guys that just did the gladiatorial game?
It may have been.
Yes.
Oh my god, I can't believe I forgot. So, but we'll get it posted up. And then, so you're working on Ultra Combat Modern, so that'll be cool.
Also got something else to announce.
Oh,
in about 3 months' time, there will be Ultra Modern Combat in Africa. We'll be running a campaign, my local group.
Uh-huh.
I've already talked to Colin about this. We're going to use his Africa book from Skirmish Sangan.
Nice.
Country and the made-up countries that are in that book.
Yep.
But we're going to set it a little bit earlier.
Uh-huh.
So it'll be like a 70s, 80s time period.
Okay.
So we're still going to see some World War II equipment, probably a fair amount, actually.
Yeah.
And you're going to see some smattering of some more modern equipment.
So we're going to see something like Rhodesia?
Yes, we are, because I've already started the miniatures. I'm working on a tutorial video on cavalry right now. So I'll be using the new contrast paints. So it'll be kind of a combination. I've done a video on camo, but it didn't work out quite right.
Okay.
So I've promised everybody a new camo video with contrast paints, and I'll be doing horses as well at the same time. And I've done a whole bunch of conversions of World War II miniatures that I'll be showing pretty soon. And I've given a lot of the infantry SLRs, so FNs, that I've 3D printed, and we'll be giving some of the World War II miniatures some modern weapons mixed in with their World War II.
Interesting.
So there'll be I think there's 4 of us playing in that campaign right at the moment, but we have possible of a 5th member. So we'll have 4 to 5 countries. We'll be playing in 28 mil mostly. There might be some hex encounter games. We're talking about that right now.
These have to do with the maps you were asking me about on YouTube?
Yes, yeah, we're in discussions about that right now. So, because we want to play on a larger scale, country-wise. So we've been discussing going with some hex encounter games.
Fantastic.
So it's going to be a busy what's left of the year for me.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Definitely sounds like it. Jim, you got any future projects other than Op Center? Any gaming-wise?
Op Center, let me think here. Yeah, Op Center, obviously. Again, we're going to be twitching Air War C-21 North Vietnam coming up. And the only other immediate gaming project on the table at the moment, I've talked about this a couple times. Now that Historicon is out of the way, and there's like 1 or 2 more things I want to talk about in Historicon. But before we get to that, now that Historicon's finally like behind me, I finally managed to circle back with my friend Piotr from Poland. And we are gearing up big time for Valor and Victory and Panzer Leader in 80th anniversary recreations of German invasion of Poland. So yeah, we're done with, or we're mostly done with the 75th cycle, so to speak. Like we just did 75th of Normandy. Someone's going to do 75th of the Battle of the Bulge, I'm sure, coming up at Christmas. It probably won't be me because I've already done the 70th, but somebody's going to do it, and that's great. But what Piotr and I are doing is we're kind of getting a jump on it, and we're starting the 80s. So September 1st, 2019 marks the 80th anniversary of the official, not necessarily correct, but the official start of World War II with Germany's invasion of Poland. So we're making up, I've got 2 operational scale games for, I bought at Historicon, and I'm building counters and map sheets for Panzer Leader, Polish, and early war German, very early war German, obviously. And also for Valor and Victory for our more small scale infantry heavy games. You know, Panzer Leader is mostly, battalion level game in Panzer Leader where both sides have a full battalion, 600 to 800 men. You can play that in 45 minutes. It's super fast. It's kind of like a tutorial or a scrimmage game, like a quick pickup game. Usually at Panzer Leader, you're doing at least regiment, if not brigade. And if you feel brave, you can put a full division on the table.
Yeah.
And do it, the right way. I don't know if we'll get that big, but because again, Polish tanks and mechanized infantry or whatever are kind of rare on the ground. But we're building the armies for it, and we hope to have there'll be a lot of gaming for that in August to kind of start presenting to people at the very beginning of September.
Nice, very cool. Jim, in your spare time.
Yep.
Just when you have a minute or two, if you could put together an Operation Market Garden, I'd be happy to play on the anniversary of that coming up in September. No pressure or anything. Right. No pressure.
I'll just talk to my clone that lives in a parallel universe. There's always room. You set sidestep into another dimension. No, that's actually we like that's another one that we've done before. There are in fact games for scenarios in the original Panzer Leader box set, or several of them for Panzer Leader. And my brother Amphibious Monster on the site used to do a lot of Panzer Leader for Market Garden. That was his thing. The initial 30 core breakthrough. We didn't do too much of the airborne stuff. There is an airborne variant for Panzer Leader, and it's one thing that, I don't know, maybe you and IG want to try one of these days, called Para Leader, which really gets pretty involved. It's you have a map and you have to like plot out where your guys are all going to land, and then you see where the wind really takes you, and all of your platoons. Well, you've seen how a Panzer Leader game looks.
Yeah.
All of those platoons break up into their constituent sticks, so you're almost playing Panzer Leader on a squad level.
Oh, no kidding.
Obviously, you don't do this with a very big game. Well, your paratroopers get scattered to the wind.
Yeah.
And only as they combine, like 3 sticks will combine into an actual platoon. And when those 3 sticks get together into one hex, you take the sticks off and you replace it with the original intended, paratrooper platoon. And those units are freaking powerful. They have ridiculous defense because of their training. They have ridiculous attack because they load them all with SMGs and BARs and everything else. Satchel charge. They get all the combat engineer abilities because it's all their demolition kit or whatever. So well, not to get into the rules of Panzer Leader, but they become really, really powerful. But they only unlock all those special abilities once they manage to rejoin into a full platoon. And this kind of abstractly, and the same thing with British paratroopers. And the reason for that rule is they're kind of abstractly reflecting, not only do the squads have to get together, but you have to find those canisters that they've dropped that have all those heavier weapons in them or whatever.
Yep.
And, you find those, you open them up, that's where you actually unlock some of your special abilities. Your satchel charges, your bazookas, And it wasn't that big of a deal in Normandy, believe it or not, because they're dropping on some pretty terrible German units, 709th and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But in Market Garden, you're dropping on 2 SS Panzer divisions in daylight. So pack a lunch, because when you hit the ground, you've got a man's job ahead of you. You're up against it. But yeah, there's all that. My brother Ben used to do the assault on, what was the name of the bridge? The one that Robert Redford did in the movie, where he has to actually cross the bridge or cross the river further downstream, and then what they do is they try to assault the bridge from 2 directions at once.
Yeah.
Nijmegen?
I think it was definitely... Yeah, it was definitely that river. It was either Nijmegen or right outside of Nijmegen. The name of the bridge, I think, is different, but it was right in that area.
Yes.
Let's just call it Nijmegen.
Yeah, he just...
remember that Nijmegen run was this last week.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
And, the I'm trying to remember his name, but the actual captain that Robert Redford played in the movie just passed away not too long ago, within the last month. So I just saw it in the news. But, that really happened. I mean, they didn't embellish that really in the movie. That's pretty much how it actually happened. I've read his story, and he actually did his Hail Marys and everything as they were crossing. So he said it was pretty realistic to how it really was. Obviously they dramatized it a little bit for the movie, but he said it was pretty close. So... Yeah, originally I was supposed to go over and do the anniversary parachute jump, but it's just not going to happen. I've never got it coordinated in time, so I guess I'll have to live through a game, I guess. So...
There's a slight, maybe 10% to 50% chance. I mean, I've done my mid-year trip to Pennsylvania, obviously, of heading over to southern Belgium around, sometime in December. I don't want it to get too much to Christmas because I don't want to spend my life savings on it. For the 75th of the Bulge.
Oh, nice.
That might be. It's like 5 months away, but again, it's like 15% chance. But we are investigating the possibility. I did the 70th of D-Day, almost 5 years ago now, and that was a pretty powerful trip. In 2014, so maybe for 2019, I might do the 75th of the Bulge. We'll see how that works out.
Fantastic. That would be cool.
That's
Excellent.
Amazing, yeah.
So, all right. I'm trying to scroll through Facebook, and I feel like such a knucklehead. I cannot find the name of that rule set that I've been talking to the people about. Other quick things. Like I said, I'm going to talk to Greg about doing a boot camp around Halloweenish time for Dust. Part of our Weird War postmodern stuff. And then also somebody else reached out to me about doing a boot camp. Who was it now? I'm telling you, I'm totally just not with it this morning.
Well, if you're still looking for that,
yeah, go ahead.
Super fast. One last thing from Historicon. Well, super fast, two things. Number one, huge shout out to my new friends Marvin and Jamie Veter. This isn't really modern, but they ran a Freeman's Farm American Revolution game that was absolutely off the hook, or whatever the kids are saying these days. It was insane, man. That was he like would announce the order phase with an actual bugle. With that, he actually yeah. People at other tables really appreciated that, but we were having fun.
Oh, fantastic!
Oh yeah, it was an awesome game. But to kind of stick to moderns, it's not going to be like the most dazzling piece of content that we put up for Historicon over on Tabletop. But if you're serious and you want to look at modern combat and you want to look at modern gaming, or modern combat in a really realistic sense. I was very fortunate to attend the seminar and afterwards get some time. I didn't get it on camera, unfortunately. This was a thing, but I was trying to get some time after the seminar with two American Army colonels that were giving a seminar there. That's Colonels Pappel, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right, and Hatcher. So Pappel commanded 168th Armored Battalion at Sadr City in 2008 during the fighting that took place in the early part of that year. And Hatcher was 64th Brigade's support battalion. So, first of all, a lot of us, even on this podcast, are, obviously veterans, and we talk to veterans all the time. These guys weren't just veterans. These were the actual battalion and regimental commanders who ran that battle. And they were actually there at Historicon. I was actually really kind of surprised because, you talk to guys like that, and you're like, they kind of laugh at us, playing little toy soldiers or whatever, but they were super professional, super respectful or whatever. They talked about, the actual decisions they had to make, and some of the actual choices and some of the actual obstacles they were up against, not just in combat, but also engineering, construction, logistics, support. One of the things I found interesting, you might get a kick out of this, Gianna, he's talking about his assets. This is actually Colonel Papel, commanded an armored battalion, first of the 68th. And he's talking about his support assets. He's like, well, we didn't really. I know there's an org chart here that says we had a mortar platoon. We didn't really have a mortar platoon. We repurposed our mortar platoon as a rifle platoon because we didn't want to use our mortars. And then like the next bullet point in his presentation is close air support and combat aviation support. And I literally just raised my hand. I was asking questions all through the seminar. They didn't mind. But I'm like, okay, wait a minute. You were using A-10s and, Apaches and all this other stuff like that, but you weren't using mortars? He's like, yeah, the mortars just weren't accurate enough. Those A-10s were actually a lot more accurate because it's a collateral damage decision, So maybe we weren't using the full, 30 millimeter, Avenger gun or whatever, but some of the guided ordnance on there was just, and I always thought mortars were a lot more accurate than that. But he was saying, no, when it comes to accurately, we got to put a shell through this one particular building, but not the building next to it. We always call the combat aviation support rather than our own battalion mortars. Again, there's a write-up for it on the site. If you guys are interested in that, check it out on ontabletop.com. It's part one of the live blog. It's probably about halfway down. Again, there's no super awesome table for it or whatever. It was just really kind of the highlight of the weekend. For me, was to get a chance, especially after the seminar when I got to talk to them one-on-one for a little bit. It was a great it was a great part of the weekend for me.
Perfect.
If you're interested in modern gaming, modern combat, the way it really goes down, as far as especially at the command level. Some of the questions that we discussed is in a little write up there. Check it out. You might find it interesting. And that was pretty much it for me and Historicon.
Excellent. Well, guys, thank you very much. Just wanted to say real quick, shout out to all of our supporters, Anthony, Lawrence, Jennifer, Dennis, Dylan, Jim, and Rasmus. Those are all our Patreon supporters. You can find us on Patreon, Facebook, YouTube, Podbean, Google Podcasts. Well, it's not iTunes anymore. iTunes is dead, right? Is it Apple Music? So
Apple Podcasts.
Apple Podcasts? Okay. So you can find us all in there. Make sure you tell your friends, all that good stuff. We're going to have some exciting events coming up. Chris from Phalanx Consortium, which is the U.S. rep for Dish Dash Games, Skirmish, and Ultra Combat.
Met him at Historicon.
Really nice guy. He is very, very interested in doing a boot camp with us. So we're going to start trying to coordinate something like that. And we're going to start getting some, stuff driven here in the U.S. side. And I know we're still talking to Spectre guys about doing a boot camp probably in the UK for Spectre, 2nd edition. And speaking of that, wanted to send a congratulations out to Matt, who finally tied the knot with his lovely bride this week. So congratulations to them.
Hey.
And like I said, I'm going to twist Greg's arm, and we're going to do some projects too. And Greg, thank you very much for joining us in the studio.
It was a pleasure and super interesting.
So to Chris, it's glad to have you back. And to Jim, thank you very much for all your hard work there at Historicon and the Ops Center. I'm looking forward to the next series, even if you won't tell us what it is. And so everybody out there, thank you very much. We're happy to be back. We're hoping season 3 just exceeds your expectations. And until we see you, happy gaming, and we will see you soon.